Klamath National Forest, on the Oregon-California border. June 12, 2021. Travis D'Angelo, a firefighter on leave from Medford, had only planned a quiet solo hike, away from the post-holiday crowds. He veered off the main trail into a nameless thicket. No markers, no footsteps, just the dense, humming quiet of deep forest. Around midday, as sunlight filtered through the treetops, he caught sight of something pale yellow in the distance. Maybe an old sign or a rusted trash can, he thought, and stepped closer. What Travis found wasn't a sign. It was the corroded shell of a school bus, nearly swallowed by vines and decades of moss, and more unsettling, there was no road leading to it. Inside, the air was rank. Mold covered every surface. Torn seats, rotting book bags, student belongings frozen in time. But in the very back row, beneath a collapsed luggage rack, he spotted something that would send shockwaves across the country. A human jawbone, still fitted with braces. Travis had no idea he had just reopened a case the nation thought was buried in 1999, a mass disappearance that remains the most chilling and unsolved school mystery in American history. May 1999, in Medford, Oregon, the city simmered gently in the soft warmth of late spring. The halls of North Medford High School echoed with laughter, locker doors slamming shut, and the anxious countdown of seniors counting their final days as students. Graduation was less than 3 weeks away. Crimson and black caps and gowns had been distributed, college applications submitted, and one long-standing tradition was quietly taking shape: the senior send-off trip, an unofficial, unsupervised getaway organized entirely by the students themselves. No teachers, no oversight. Most years, it was a weekend at Applegate Lake or along the Rogue River. But this year, the class of '99 wanted something farther. 18-year-old Ethan Morales was the soul of the group, an amateur videographer, always carrying his handheld camera, narrating everything like he was filming a documentary of his own youth. "It'll be Stand By Me, Medford edition," he joked. Ethan wasn't a top student, didn't play sports, but he had a charisma that made others follow him without question. Next to him was Kayla Jensen, class president and valedictorian. Her father, Robert L. Jensen, was the sitting mayor of Medford and made no secret of his ambition to see his daughter at Harvard. But Kayla was suffocating. Behind the radiant smile on her senior portrait were sleepless nights and anti-anxiety pills quietly handed to her by her mother. Then there was Marcus Delaney, star quarterback, heading to Oregon State on a full scholarship. But his closest friend wasn't another athlete. It was Savannah Ortega, a quiet girl who never went anywhere without her sketchbook. Her charcoal portraits of classmates were haunting, often placing them in shadowy forests or surrounding them with obscure symbols. No one had ever seen her smile. On a warm Friday afternoon outside the school, 29 seniors lined up for a group photo beneath a hand-painted banner that read, "Final Summer, Class of '99. No one knew it would be their last picture together. Their chosen destination, a remote, unmarked campsite deep in the southern stretch of Klamath National Forest, close to the California border, over 30 miles from the nearest town. No cell service, no traffic cams, a true dead zone. Bus number 57, belonging to Jackson County's transportation fleet, was assigned to the trip, driven by a temporary substitute named Raymond Ray Halliday, a 58-year-old veteran driver with 17 years of experience, recently back from surgery. He wasn't the original pick. That had been Joe Lansing, who had called in sick the night before with a mild fever. On the morning of June 5, 1999, at exactly 7:52 a.m., Bus 57 rolled out of the North Medford parking lot. A few parents waved goodbye. One filmed on a camcorder, capturing laughter, jokes, and a final glance from Kayla toward her mother. A forced, fleeting smile. That evening, no student called home. No one checked in. At first, it was chalked up to spotty service and teenage forgetfulness. But by the next morning, when Teresa Vasquez received a voicemail at 2:14 a.m. from her daughter's number, filled only with frantic breathing and someone whispering, Don't turn it on. Shut it off. Panic took hold. Local police were contacted. Forest rangers mobilized. Helicopters took to the air. But Klamath National Forest spans over 6,000 square kilometers. No tire tracks. No pings, no eyewitnesses. No one had seen the bus turn off any road. It had simply vanished. And from that moment on, the senior class of North Medford, 29 students and 1 driver, became the ghosts of the summer of 1999. Sunday morning, June 6, 1999. The atmosphere in Medford shifted from concern to chaos. Calls flooded into the city police department, all saying the same thing. The school bus never arrived. At first, the officer on duty logged them as a late arrival. But by noon, when 11 more parents reported they couldn't reach their children, and especially when Irene Jensen, the mayor's wife, showed up in person, everything changed. Police Chief Ralph Dugan, a decorated veteran who once led wildfire rescue efforts in '87, was notified at 2:45 p.m. He immediately mobilized Jackson County's Search and Rescue Unit, 7 officers and 2 K-9 teams, to sweep the southern routes from Medford to the outer reaches of Klamath. But everyone remained skeptical. A school bus doesn't just vanish. No accident reports. No witnesses, no unusual tire marks. Meanwhile, at Sacred Heart Cathedral downtown, nearly 80 parents, relatives, and teachers gathered quietly. No one raised their voice. All eyes were on the front doors, waiting for that yellow bus to pull in. By late afternoon, Dr. Raymond Callahan, father of student Trevor Callahan, walked into the room, pale and shaken. He had just found an envelope in his family's mailbox. No return address. No postmark. Inside, a single wrinkled slip of paper with 5 trembling words. "We're safe. Stop searching." At first, people clung to it as hope. But once police examined the handwriting, something felt off. It looked exactly like Trevor's script, but too exact. The lines were too neat, the pressure inconsistent. Experts believed it was traced. Immediately, the suspicion shifted. Someone is trying to mislead us. On the 3rd day, a local fisherman named Dale Henning reported finding something strange near a river bend in Klamath, about 20 miles from the main road. Half buried in the mud, he found a disposable camera. When forensic teams examined it, they discovered the film had been removed. The casing was still damp and dirty, but beneath the lens, a faded name label was barely visible. Morales E. No photos. No visuals recovered. Around that same time, the media picked up the story. KTVL News 10 was the first to broadcast. 29 students and 1 driver missing on senior trip bus, number 57, vanishes without a trace. Within 12 hours, theories began spreading. The kids ran away to join a cult. They died in an accident and someone covered it up. Adults were involved, and the truth is being buried. It's a Jonestown copycat. There was some kind of ritual. The kids were chosen. Each passing day pushed hope further out of reach. The police had found no skid marks, no footprints, no paper trail, not even a scream. Nothing. By day 7, people began to say aloud what no one wanted to believe. The bus and the entire senior class of North Medford High had disappeared from the face of the earth. 11 days after the school bus vanished, Medford felt like a living body that had lost its heartbeat. Classes continued at North Medford High, but the number of empty seats outnumbered those filled. On the doors of 29 family homes, white ribbons were tied, not as symbols of mourning, but because no one dared to call it death. Jackson County Sheriff's Office released a formal statement. They had scoured more than 1,200 kilometers of forest roads, flown over 2,800 hours in aerial sweeps, deployed 6 K-9 units, yet still had no credible leads. At the same time, rumors began circulating among parent groups. Some recalled disappearances from the early 1980s, also in the Klamath region cases where no bodies had ever been found. On the evening of June 17th, the Ortega family parents of Savannah Ortega received a small package. No return address, no postmark. Inside was a worn brown leather notebook, aged from moisture, along with a single sheet of paper that read, "She's still alive in the woods. Understand what she drew." The notebook contained dozens of charcoal and ink sketches, all signed with the initials S.O. Some drawings unmistakably depicted familiar faces, Kayla, Ethan, Marcus, but in surreal, haunting scenes. A circle of figures in cloaks, standing around strange spiral symbols in the forest. One particular sketch shook the investigators, a school bus in the woods, surrounded by faceless silhouettes. Behind the wheel sat a figure wearing a grotesque mask, half human, half beast. A forensic art analyst noted, "The symbols in the drawings do not match any known religious or cultural systems." But a folklore professor at the University of Oregon pointed out similarities to signs once used by a secluded spiritual group from the 1970s called Heaven's Light Sanctuary, active in the Applegate Valley. The group disbanded following the suspicious death of a 17-year-old girl in 1976, but their files had all but vanished. No charges, no convictions. Just fragments in old county archives. After the second letter arrived, the investigation split into two directions. Police continued to favor the accidental theory that the bus had slid off a ravine or been buried in a landslide. Meanwhile, a group of parents, led by Robert Vasquez, father of missing student Daniel Vasquez, began to suspect that someone was hiding the truth. He launched a personal website called find57.org, compiling maps, reports, and every strange message received by families. In a blog post dated June 19th, Robert wrote, "I don't believe my son is dead. I don't believe they took the wrong road. I believe someone took them, and they don't want us to find them." On June 25th, nearly a month after the disappearance, Oregon State Police officially suspended the large-scale search. They classified the case as a mass disappearance without trace. No bodies. No signal, no answers. Only a quiet letter, drawings like riddles, and a growing unease spreading through the Oregon wilderness. June 12, 2021, nearly 22 years after the disappearance. Travis D'Angelo, 39, a firefighter on leave from Medford, set out early that morning with a backpack, a hunting knife, and a drone. He chose not to follow the main hiking trail, instead navigating an overgrown, long-forgotten path last recorded on a 1974 forestry map as Siwash Falls, Route C. He wanted silence. No signal, no people. But near midday, as he hacked through shoulder-high ferns, Travis stopped. Something pale yellow-rusted, silent peeked through the vines and dead leaves. He assumed it was an old chemical drum. But as he got closer, he saw the truth. A shattered metal frame, cracked windows, yellow paint peeling under moss and old school bus. The side number was nearly erased. But with the sun hitting just right, the faded digits emerged like ghosts. Bus number 57. The vehicle was half sunken beneath tangled roots and wet earth. The door had swollen shut from years of dampness. Travis had to shove hard to break it loose. A wave of mold and decay hit him like a wall. Inside, it was a tomb of time. Ripped seats, ivy creeping through broken windows. Rotting backpacks slumped across metal bars. A North Medford Letterman jacket hung limply. On one seat lay a warped Walkman, battery acid crusted along its edge. On the floor, a moldy school planner, the pages fused together. Scribbled faintly on the cover, "Kayla Jensen, May exam schedule." But in the very back row, beneath a pile of tattered clothing, Travis saw something that froze the breath in his lungs. Bones, a jaw still fitted with braces, a length of arm, real, human. When Travis backed away and dialed 911, he had no idea that he had just cracked open one of the darkest secrets in Oregon's criminal history. Within 4 hours, the scene was locked down. The Oregon State Forensics Unit, forensic anthropologists, crime scene analysts, and FBI agents arrived. Every item had to be catalogued carefully. Years in the forest had degraded most biological evidence. Preliminary findings: 17 human remains were recovered. All appeared to be young. Most were matched through dental records or DNA identified as members of North Medford High's senior class, who vanished in 1999. What stunned investigators even more was the location of the bus. There was no way it had driven there. No service road. No logging path wide enough for a school bus. No tire tracks. No snapped branches. Which meant the vehicle had been placed there intentionally, and someone had gone to great lengths to hide it. Under the driver's seat, inside a decomposed backpack, investigators found a moisture-proof envelope. Inside, a bundle of charcoal sketches, each signed S.O. Savannah Ortega. Every drawing was a breadcrumb from hell, a fire-lit ritual circle, figures and masks, blood dripping from tree branches, symbols that no one could read. The final image showed the bus, surrounded by tall, faceless figures, and in the driver's seat, a creature wearing a wooden mask part human, part beast. 9 students were still missing. So were the 2 adults on board, history teacher Carl Muse and chaperone Janine Crawford. The case was officially reopened, no longer a disappearance, but a crime scene. And the world now knew the story of the class of '99 wasn't a local legend. It was real, buried in the woods for over 2 decades. June 15, 2021, just 3 days after the bus was discovered. At the Ashland Police Department, a man appeared at exactly 6:47 a.m. He was gaunt skin clinging to sharp cheekbones, hair long and matted like it hadn't been washed in years. His jacket was torn at the shoulder, one sleeve missing. His eyes darted like someone afraid of the light itself. He stepped up to the front desk, placed both hands on the counter, and whispered, "I'm Ethan Morales, class of '99, North Medford High." The room fell silent. That name had appeared on hundreds of flyers, on the school's memorial plaque, on every missing persons board for 2 decades. He was one of the students who vanished on June 5, 1999. Lieutenant Emily Darrow, the officer on duty, kept her voice steady. "Do you have any identification, Mr. Morales?" Ethan shook his head slowly. "I wasn't supposed to come back. They're still watching." His words rasped like they'd been dragged through sand. He trembled like someone pulled from an ice-cold lake. His eyes weren't those of a man rescued, but of someone who had escaped. Fingerprinting, blood, and hair samples were taken. The lab results returned in under 2 hours. DNA matched. Fingerprints matched. Dental records matched. There was no doubt. The man standing before them was Ethan Morales, missing since June 5, 1999. He was moved to an isolation unit at the Oregon State Investigation Center. Present in the room were an FBI agent, a trauma psychologist, and a senior homicide detective. But Ethan didn't speak easily. He sat motionless for hours. Refused water, didn't eat, didn't sleep. It wasn't until the lights were dimmed and a doctor gently said, "We found 17 of the others," that Ethan began to shake. "What about Savannah? What about Kayla?" he asked. "We haven't found them yet," the detective replied. Ethan lowered his head, and for a moment, he looked like he would collapse under the weight of his silence. Then, as if a floodgate had burst, he started to speak. "The bus didn't break down. There was no crash, no flood, no wrong turn. We were taken." He said that as the bus passed through a southern segment of the Klamath forest, figures appeared blocking the road. They wore gray robes. No weapons, no threats. They simply stood there. Ray, the driver, fell silent. It was as if something took over him. He stopped the bus without a word. No one understood what was happening. Then the strangers told them the outside world had ended, that only one place remained. A place of cleansing. A place of rebirth. They called it the Hollowing. Ethan described how they were led deep into the woods, far beyond anything mapped. No signals, no electricity. At first it felt peaceful. They were fed, given tents, reassured. But then, things began to unravel. They started rewiring us, erasing names, splitting us into groups, assigning new identities. Anyone who resisted disappeared. He didn't raise his head when he said, "The last time I saw Kayla, she was screaming. She wanted out. 2 of them dragged her into the dark. She never came back. I survived by pretending. I nodded. I obeyed. I kept quiet for 7 years. Then, in 2006, a storm hit. Flash flooding. I slipped away through the river current. When asked, "Why didn't you come forward in 2006?" Ethan stared at the wall and replied, "Because I knew. They're still out there. And I knew if I said anything, they would know I was alive. And they'd come for you, too." At the end of the interview, Ethan said one final thing, barely a whisper. "We weren't lost kids. We were chosen. And the ones who chose us, they're not finished." The return of Ethan Morales didn't bring the relief everyone had hoped for. Instead, it ripped open a wound that had never truly closed. On June 17th, less than 48 hours after his reappearance, headlines exploded. Sole survivor reveals chilling truth behind 1999 mass disappearance. Media crews flooded into Medford from Seattle, San Francisco, even New York. News vans camped outside the police station. Helicopters hovered over Klamath Forest, as if their lenses could penetrate the trees and find the answers. But this was no longer just a search. It had become a war of belief at Sacred Heart Church, where a memorial was held every June for the lost class. A closed-door meeting gathered the families of the victims. On one side were those who believed Ethan, the parents of Daniel Vasquez, Marcus Delaney, Savannah Ortega. They believed every word, every mask, every ritual, every scream buried in the woods. "We always knew something was wrong," they said. On the other side, families like the Jensens Kayla's parents looked at Ethan as a dangerous liar. They asked, why was he the only one who survived? Why wait 15 years to speak? Did he kill our children and make up a story to save himself? Some even publicly accused Ethan of being the sole perpetrator still alive. Within 4 days, he received over 200 online threats, was followed in traffic 3 times, and once had an unknown liquid thrown at him in a hospital parking lot while awaiting a trauma evaluation. Meanwhile, the Ashland Police Department began receiving strange reports from the forest's edge. A hunting camp, ransacked overnight. No tracks, just a charred circle of ash. A group of young hikers claimed they were watched by figures in gray between the trees, but no photos were captured. An elderly woman in Butte Falls said her dog detected the scent of death less than 100 meters from her house. When authorities arrived, the soil had been freshly turned and covered with black ash. On June 22nd, Ethan was officially placed under federal witness protection. He was relocated to a secure facility near Eugene. But before he left, he scribbled one final message for Police Chief Dugan. "Don't go back there during the full moon." That same day, Irene Jensen Kayla's mother held a private press conference. Standing before a dozen cameras, she declared, "That man does not represent my daughter. My daughter wasn't brainwashed. She wasn't chosen. She wasn't sacrificed in some ritual. My daughter was murdered. And her killer is Ethan Morales." In that moment, the hope sparked by a single survivor was snuffed out by the very people who had once prayed for a miracle. And so, the town of Medford, rather than unite in the face of tragedy, was now fractured in two, divided by a living witness no one could agree to believe. June 24th, 2021. A dense fog blanketed Klamath Forest, despite clear skies and no rain. It was the first full moon since the discovery of bus number 57. That same evening, a routine field survey was underway by the Oregon Department of Forestry along Route 6, near the forest's southern edge. The team included 3 members: geotechnical engineer Mitch Halverson, botanical surveyor Sandy Kopp, and research assistant Jared Reese, a senior biology student at Southern Oregon University. They departed from the observation station at 5:12 p.m., fully equipped with reflective vests, GPS trackers, and radios. At 6:48 p.m., Mitch radioed in, reporting a metallic structure overgrown by vegetation approximately 300 meters off the main trail, possibly an abandoned utility vehicle. Moments later, Radio contact was lost. At 10:07 p.m., a search team was dispatched. By 1:26 a.m., they found Jared Reese alone, standing motionless in the woods, eyes fixed forward despite flashlights pointed straight into them. His hands were covered in blood, yet no wounds. He didn't respond to his name, repeating only one sentence. There's no way out. They don't breathe. They have no eyes. 2 days later, Jared was committed to the Oregon State Psychiatric Facility. Doctors reported no physical trauma, but his brain activity showed signs of acute dissociative shock. He began drawing obsessively. The sketches were eerily identical to those made by Savannah Ortega 22 years earlier. The incident was kept from the press, but rumors leaked. An independent journalist named Lance McKay, known for covering cult disappearances in the Siskiyou Mountains, published a detailed blog post titled, "The Survivor Warned Us About the Full Moon." We didn't listen. 3 entered the forest. Only 1 came back, and he's not the same. The post spread rapidly. By June 27th, the phrase, "The hollowing is not over," was trending statewide in Oregon. At the FBI field office in Eugene, the North Medford case was officially reclassified under a new designation, T57, Unresolved Ritualistic Event Translation. It was no longer a disappearance or a homicide investigation. It was an event that defied categorization. That same day, another discovery shook the investigative team. From Jared's new drawings, agents cross-referenced older sketches by Savannah Ortega. Several symbols matched, but one stood out, a newly added seal, a triple-ringed circle with a beast-like head in the center. It had never been seen before in any official case files, until someone pulled a long-forgotten file from 1975, tied to the disbanded Heaven's Light Sanctuary. Inside, a wood engraving once dismissed as meaningless matched it perfectly. Savannah had drawn it in 1999. Jared drew it in 2021, which meant something was repeating. August 2021. 2 months after the discovery of bus number 57, and a month after Jared Reese's breakdown, the name North Medford 99 once again exploded into public consciousness. A book suddenly appeared on Amazon, no official publisher, no marketing, no interviews. Its title was simple, The Hollowing, I Was There. Author, E. Morales. It was a handwritten account by Ethan Morales, digitized by an unnamed former classmate. The book described everything: the moment the bus stopped in the woods, how the robed figures approached the students, and what happened inside the hollowing. According to Ethan, at first, they didn't force anything. They provided food, shelter, and held nighttime connection meditations. But on the 7th day, things changed. Those who resisted were separated. They disappeared, and screams, no evidence. The rest began to have the same dream, standing in the forest, inside a ring of fire, as eyeless figures bowed before them. They told us only the chosen could hear the forest's call, and those who refused would be returned to the soil. The memoir became a phenomenon, not because everyone believed it, but because it aligned with facts no one could explain. Symbols matched drawings by Savannah and Jared. Descriptions of the hidden encampment aligned with satellite-detected heat anomalies. Ethan described an old brick kiln where children were taken for cleansing rites, and weeks later, a climate survey team found an unexplained sunken patch of earth lined with 19th-century kiln bricks, absent from any official geological records. But the most disturbing part wasn't the memoir itself. It was what happened after its release. On September 3rd, a group of 4 TikTokers known for exploring urban legends tried to retrace Bus 57's route using Ethan's map. They live-streamed the journey. At 3:42 p.m., they veered off the main trail. By 5:05 p.m., the signal cut out. 7 hours later, only one was found. Shivering, bloodied, unable to recall their own name. The other 3 were never located. Shortly after, the official page for the hollowing was hacked. All cover images were replaced by a single one, A charred ring with the beast head symbol, identical to the drawings by Savannah and Jared. Below the image, a red caption read, "This time, no one leaves." The state of Oregon issued an emergency closure of the southern Klamath region. The FBI suspended all active surveys. Ethan Morales was immediately relocated from federal witness protection, but his whereabouts remain unknown. The book was pulled from all digital platforms. Yet somehow the PDF began circulating underground, and strangely, printed copies started appearing in places no one expected. In suburban mailboxes, on classroom desks, in public libraries no one recalled purchasing. The Hollowing was no longer just a story from 1999. It had become something spreading page by page, person by person, night by night. October 2021. North Medford High School held its 22nd annual memorial for the class that vanished in 1999. But this year felt different. Security patrolled the gates. Journalists were kept off campus. Attendance was half of what it had been in years prior. Inside the auditorium, 29 candles were lit. But for the first time in over 2 decades, one candle was not for the dead. It was for the one who returned, Ethan Morales. Some bowed their heads. Others refused. Across town, in a building abandoned since 2002, the former Central Library, lights were seen flickering at night. A security guard claimed he saw a desk lamp switch on, then off again, even though the building had long been disconnected from the grid. When officers investigated, they found no one. But on the second-floor reading table lay a printed copy of The Hollowing, open to the page, with the beast mark seal. In the book's margin, a single handwritten line in pencil read, "They didn't stay in the woods." The forest was just the beginning. By the end of October, similar reports began emerging in 3 other states, California, Washington, and Idaho. A group of students missing during a field trip. No signal. No trace. Someone mailed strange drawings to the school. The scent of ash. Circular markings. No one dared call it a spread, but no one denied it either. In one final interview, Lieutenant Emily Darrow, the first officer to meet Ethan at the station, spoke softly, almost to herself. "I used to think Ethan survived, but now, I think he brought it out with him." On Halloween night 2021, in a forgotten corner of North Medford High's library, a student on cleanup duty found an unmarked notebook. The first page contained a single sentence. "We were never the lost ones. We were the bait, no closure, no answers, only questions that died but kept whispering." The Hollowing was no longer a story. It was a door, and someone had opened it.